Hello and welcome to the Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. I am your host, Ty Christensen. Mommy! Neil's on a chalkboard. We've got Jordan Christensen on the pod. Don't let him in! Don't let him in! Don't let him in! Don't let him in! And we've got Clinton Westover, Dr. Clinton.
I want to smash his face in!
So today we are discussing Babadook. Babadook. This movie came out in 2014. It was by far the scariest movie that came out in 2014. Unless It Follows comes out the same year. It Follows was like around this time, right? Let me check. That's going to bother me. When did It Follows come out? Because that's another one I want to do on the podcast.
Eventually, yeah. He did another great movie.
2014. See, it was. See, I am very good at remembering when movies came out, especially ones that I see. I watched It Follows and Babadook in the same year, and I was like, is this the great new invention of horror? Is this the rediscovery, of good horror movies, like independent, spooky, scary horror movies? Sorry, Jordan, I cut you off. What were you saying?
No, you're good. Just the guy that made It Follows also made another movie called Under the Silver Lake, which is also a crazy film.
Was that the one with Andrew Garfield?
Yeah.
I think I started it. I didn't finish it. Did you like it?
I liked it.
Maybe I have to go back and give that one a second shout out. Or a second...
A second what?
A second, I said shout out, but I meant to say shot. I'm reading something while talking.
Is that the one where he saves all the soldiers in World War II?
Yeah, and he drop kicks a grenade. It's awesome. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh, right.
So, folks, today we are discussing this messed up movie.
I know. Sorry, Clinton. We keep bringing you on for all these, terrifying
We love
films.
having the doctor in the house to give his synopsis of what kind of childhood trauma is this kid experiencing? What is the mother experiencing? Is this post-traumatic stress? Or is this, clinical depression? What is it?
I love it. Insidious, Conjuring, The Thing... Witch.
Well, we assume that Clinton is sick and depraved like us and likes these movies because we can't bring Cameron on.
I'm typecast for all the really terrible things.
Yes, exactly. Well, because you bring so much levity to a situation, Clinton. You're very easygoing and you make people feel at ease. So when we talk about these really stressful movies, to prevent everyone's blood pressure from going too high, we have you on the podcast is to take us down a notch. So. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's good. You serve a very important role in our family, so we're grateful we have you. So this movie, holy crap, guys, came out in 2014. It was directed by Jennifer Kent, written by Jennifer Kent. If you can say that women directors can't do masterful movies, holy crap. I'm talking to you, Jordan, you flaming sexist.
Dude, I love American Psycho, and that was directed by a woman.
I know, dude. What is it with these women that have the most disturbing psychological movies?
Yeah, I thought it brought a lot of feminine stuff to the table. You could tell a lady was driving that car.
Understanding what it is to raise kids.
No pun intended.
Wait, I missed it. What did he say?
He said you could tell a lot that there was a lady driving the car. but I don't think she was driving, was she?
Yeah, she
was on
was.
the way to the hospital. Her husband was driving.
Oh, well...
I don't know. She was driving when the Babadook got her, so there was
I still think the joke landed for me, Clinton, even though Jordan missed it, so that's great, dude. Something about women and driving, I am on board. Sexist humor, send it my way, dude. If it makes me laugh, all sexist humor makes me laugh. That's the secret. Guys, this movie was incredible. This movie is so incredible, despite the fact that it was directed by a woman. So this movie came out in 2014. A single mother and her child fall into a deep well of paranoia when an eerie children's book titled Mr. Babadook manifests in their home. Oh my gosh, that book. Can we talk about that book? Okay, I'll get to that in a second. So what was it like watching this movie for the first time and rewatching it for the podcast? Let's start with you, Clinton.
First time I watched it was with Alex, and she couldn't get through the first half of it. She bailed. It's too scary.
Oh.
But this one, I watched it by myself, and it was good. I didn't feel as scared this time, but it was maybe I've just watched so many horror films since then that I'm desensitized, or I was just watching it during in the morning, so I wasn't scared.
No baby smashing scenes to desensitize you.
Yeah.
I know after watching The
there are a
Witch,
few movies,
everything else is PG.
This isn't even rated compared to The Witch, right? Yeah, this is a non-rated film. Not rated, not even scary.
It was great though. I love the descent into madness. Like I love that plot.
Yeah, and what a descent it was. Holy crap. Talk about like a flaming airplane falling out of the sky is the kind of descent I'm looking at. Like, every single scene, it just builds and builds. So let's get into Jordan. What was it like watching the first time rewatching it for the podcast?
First time I remember really loving it, but rewatching it for this pod, like Clinton said, a lot of the, I don't know if I'm desensitized or if it's like, it's just not as, I just didn't love it as much the first time. I mean, but I wonder, though, if I had all the feelings that the director intended me to have. Like, I just wanted that little kid to die because he was driving me absolutely nuts. And so I was like, am I a horrible human being? Or isn't that what the director's intending you to feel, right? So you feel and understand her wanting to strangle her little child, bash his brains in.
What Jordan doesn't realize is if Jennifer directed this movie and there was a father, he would have been strangling that kid after the first time they got in the car. Not at the very end, after all of this. It would have been after the first incident where you sit in the back car, Mommy! Mommy! It's like...
Ty, I laughed out loud this time when the little kid was in the car going...
Oh yeah, I did too. That's the funniest part, dude. And that's the point. Like,
so hard.
He's going insane. Like, they're all going insane. And then he has a seizure. It's freaking hilarious. I laugh at it every time too because I'm depraved. So my first time watching it, I was marred by this movie. This movie, I watched this movie and
amazing first view.
Both of those were just so. I was like, oh yeah, horror movies are back, baby. That's what I thought. I remember thinking, oh yeah, get these horror movies on the roll, and then. I don't know. Something happened in the next 4 years. We didn't get another good horror movie. I don't know. Probably good horror movies here in and out. I almost feel like what ruined horror movies, and maybe this has no correlation, but I remember thinking that the Mummy, the monster movies were going to be coming out, and we're going to get these Godzilla movies. I don't know if those movies went in production or I just didn't bother to go see them. That's partly it. But then, like, Mummy, like, it failed so poorly, even with Tom Cruise, and it's like, all right, we're going to have to put a pause on all these monster movies. But then, like, Invisible Man comes back out, you know, and again, I'm like, once more, we got these indie horror movies that I absolutely love. I want to see more of, you know? And I really liked this movie a lot, and it really did scare me. It was so unsettling. It was so unnerving. I was so worried about... What I really liked is the bait and switch. When I first start this movie, I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be the haunted evil child, you know, orphan. It's going to be Damien, the Omen, you know, all that stuff. I'm like, it's the demon kid that's the problem, right? Insidious, you're like, get rid of the kid. The kid's the one that's bringing all the bad luck. He's the one that's obsessing over Babadook. And then all of a sudden, it, like, switches somewhere partway through where you're like, oh, shoot, it's the mother, I think. Or it is really this creature that possesses the mother. This movie has everything. So... I actually still enjoyed it on rewatch. I don't know what you guys are smoking. I loved this movie on rewatch. I think there were so many more things to catch. I noticed that I didn't notice the first time. Now, to be fair, I didn't think it was as scary as the first time, but this movie is really effective because I really feel for the relationship between the mother and the son and between the aunt or I guess her sister. Those relationships are so strained, and her neighbor and her teachers, or the teachers of her son, her son's teachers. What's the best way to say that? A, B, or C. The son's teachers, all trying to help this kid, and all the relationships are strained as a result. And I really like that aspect of it. The drama really works in this movie. Really good dramatic movie.
Yeah, I honestly wondered the whole time if there even was a Babadook or if Mom was just crazy.
Yeah, that's what I thought the second time, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool to talk about that. Like, what is Babadook? What does he represent? And think of the times that he was possessing her. You know, did he ever actually leave in the basement? What is meant by the ending? So let's get into that. So 2 of our favorite things. Let's go to Jordan. Why don't you share 2 of your favorite things from this movie?
Favorite things? There's a lot of amazing moments, like when she's like looking at it's giving me chills just thinking about it, but when she's looking at the hat on the rack and the coat, and it just like switches.
On the police station? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Or even in the basement, right? Yeah, several times. But very eerily, the long fingers. Oh my gosh, the top hat. I love that scene too, because, you know, it's always like, oh, go to the police authorities. What a great way to like unsettle the viewers and the protagonist. She goes in there to get help, and then they're like, oh, you burned the book? Like, well, there's nothing we can do to help you. Like, they literally make her sound insane. I loved that. I thought that was great, you know? Brilliant, Jordan.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it just gives me chills thinking about it. I'm like, and yeah, or that weird, is it a cicada type? They make that sound, like there's just,
yeah, it's like a rattlesnake almost.
And then, like I said, lots of amazing moments like that one, and then also love just the television programs. You're like, wait a minute, is he in the television? Like, I like when they kind of break between reality and like when he's kind of looming, ever so looming. So
Like an unreliable narrator kind of reality thing.
Yeah, because you don't know if she's crazy, what's real, what's not. Yeah, it just throws you off balance. It's
Yeah,
What
awesome.
she says about the hole in the wall, and then there's no hole in the wall, with the cockroaches coming out of it.
Well,
It's
and
like, is
my
she seeing
favorite
things.
My absolute favorite thing is, I'm sure one of you two will mention, but I have some thoughts on. I mean, well, I tried to buy that. I'll let you guys talk about it.
You tried to buy it.
The book.
Oh, the book.
Oh, freak, yeah.
It's
Holy
like,
crap.
but I saw it was like $500 online. I was like, no.
Is it the original, or is it actually haunted? Man, it better sing and dance when it gets here if you pay $500 for it. Man, you can still buy the racist Dr. Seuss book for more than $500 for less money. Jordan, thanks for sharing. Clinton, what are your two favorite things?
I thought the main protagonist girl's performance was so good. Like, I believe that she was crazy.
Yeah.
She reminded me of a lot of like crazy people I've met who just can't handle life and they're just losing it and look like they're about to die of stress and
Tortured,
yeah.
haggard.
And she nailed that, like, so spot on. So I was just in awe of her whole performance. I was like, she gets it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you want to talk... So I think this is so reminiscent. So my two favorite things are the movies that this is so reminiscent of. Like very clearly images of The Shining, when she's talking to her son. He's like, I just want to bash your brains against the wall and see your head pop.
I totally
Very
thought of The
reminiscent
Shining,
of
yeah.
Jack Torrance talking to his wife when he's walking, Jack Nicholson to Shelley Duvall. He's just like, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your brains. Like, that's a really, very reminiscent of that. There are some really incredible scenes that remind me of other films, like being tied up in the basement, very reminiscent of like The Conjuring, that image of like, kind of like an exorcism that's being about to be performed.
She kind of comes in and out with a voice.
Comes in and out with a voice. I love those motifs, and you might consider them cliches, but they're really well done. Like, the movie is stylish, and I love the colors too. Like, whoever built the set design, like, the house was so eerie and creepy, like all black colors on the wall. Like, no one actually has a house like that, but it did such a good job at like filling the mood that she's trapped in this place with her son. And that's not the physical barriers, but like every time she sees her son, she has to be reminded of the fact that she lost the love of her life, her husband. And it's so good. Like, the relationship they have, I think, is so great. And you mentioned the book. We got to get into this book. This book is the most terrifying pop-up children's book that's ever existed. It's not a children's book. It's freaking terrifying. Like,
Oh, I want to own it.
don't let him in. Yeah, don't let him in. He'll come in, and then he's like, "You'll wish you were dead." Like, it's so fucking scary. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I thought the book was what really made the story unique. That's not something that's in a lot of horror films, that there's like a book that's provided that kind of gives kind of the background of the story and helps move the story along.
And when she burned it, I mean, maybe because I've seen too many horror movies, I'm like, it's going to show back up at her doorstep, and it did.
Oh, ripped it up. Didn't burn it yet.
Oh, that's right.
But you're right. Like, and the good thing is she burns it, and you're like, oh, that's a girl. And then she tries to go and get proof that, like, hey, there's someone leaving me disturbing books on my doorstep, and then
I love that
not
part.
there.
Yeah, the whole cop asking her, so the only amount of evidence you have is the book, and it's burnt.
And it's burnt. And there's no way we can get to it. There's no way we can verify that what you're saying is true. So good.
Especially after looking at her, he's just like, yeah, this chick is crazy.
Yeah, it looks a little disheveled. Are you okay? Yeah, her hair is getting more and more unkempt, like, as time goes on, dude.
Oh, yeah.
It's so stressful.
Her outfit when she goes crazy is really awesome, too. How she's wearing that white nightgown that when she gets blood on it, it just really pops out,
Starts getting worse and worse. She looks so haggard by the end of it when she sees her husband. You're just
Yeah,
like,
this movie has some great, like, visual, from the Babadook to, like Ty said, the set to what she's wearing. Like, it has all the parts of, like, an indie film, but it's just so well made.
And oh, man, I got to give it to them. This is an Australian production, right? I think it's Australian. I'm fairly certain it's an Australian movie. They're all driving on the wrong side of the road, mate. I don't know. I'm assuming it's Australian. It's either Australian, Scottish, or English. Don't care to know the difference between any of those. I'm pretty sure it's Australian. You guys make me feel like an idiot.
I thought it was English, but I don't know.
I thought it was too. I don't know. It's just
English? No, I'm going with Australian. Maybe it is English. I don't know. Babadook kind of has the British chap feel with the
With the top hat.
Top hat.
Yeah.
So fetching creepy. The children's book, like the fetching image of the mother strangling the dog, and the dog's head just like just snaps, and then the book's trembling in the image of her slicing her own throat and blood pouring out of her throat. It's so fetching, and these are pop-up images, and it's so creepy, dude. Like the little kid lying in bed, and he's just like, "Let me in." Image of the giant Babadook looming overhead. What an iconic look, though, too. Like the long fingernails, top hat, soulless eyes. Oh, it's just really cleverly done. Oh man,
kind of
I
like
wanna gush about this.
kind of like it's like a stage thing. Like he's pretending to be a person. Like it's all just like it's part of a show. Like I don't know, just the way it looks.
Absolutely,
If that makes sense.
Yep. So I gotta say, I also like the like I said, the bait and switch. I feel like you're rooting for the mom to kill that kid because you're like, the kid's possessed. He pushes that girl, he pushes her, his cousin off of the tree fort. She breaks her nose. You're like, the kid's causing trouble at school. The kid clearly has problems. He won't let his mom sleep. Mom's, has to herself, and he comes and interrupts that. This poor mother's grieving. He just can't give the mother a break. And I wanted to strangle the kid for her. I'll be like, I'll take care of him. I'll give him a swift smack in the head.
Which I thought was an interesting take, because like a movie like The Shining, it's like he's just crazy and you're not rooting for Jack Torrance, any of that stuff. And this one, you're kind of like rooting for the family, but also you kind of feel for her and you kind of want to strangle, like you said, that little boy.
I agree with her because you're like, she's just like, it's so sad. She gets caught in the lie where he's like, oh, you're not feeling sick? And she's like, no, you caught me in my lie, the guy that was covering her shift. And she's like, because he can't behave himself, to go to school. He can't be left at school, so he has to come here. And he's like, he's just yelling at his mother, and you're just like, this is so sad, so cringeworthy, so painful. And then like the other ladies are like, oh, I have a therapy group for women that have it really hard. Like, they lost their husbands too. And she's like, it must be so hard for you to go to the gym or not find time to go to the gym. That must be terrible for you. He's like, I'm sure that gives you a lot to talk about with all the women in need or whatever. It's like so great, dude. I'm like, yeah, stuff it to that stuck-up mom. Hey, this movie's so stressful. Like, I just want her to get a fetching break, and she doesn't get one the entire movie. And she sees her husband a few times, and then that's a bait and switch where the husband appears, and then he's just like turns into the darkness, and it's like, you got to go be the boy or whatever. I can't even remember what he says. It's terrifying. And then the son, he has like all these contraptions, the crossbow, and then the freaking trebuchet backpack. Like, smart kid, dude. It's like Home Alone. He's like, I'm gonna defend myself against my mother. Frenchie has to stab his mother with a knife. Holy crap, that kid's gonna need some therapy. The mother's gonna need some therapy. Everyone's gonna need some therapy. They're feeding a monster in the basement that eats maggots. What's going on there, dude? Like, okay, so I had to look up like other people's interpretations, because what I thought it was like Babadook is a representation of grief. This is how I read it, and I actually don't know what the official stance on the majority of the population, but I don't care. This is what I think it is. I always thought it was grief, right? She grieves over her husband. They talk about it many times, like with the neighbors, the sister. She's like, why can't you just move on? It's been 7 years. And she's like, I have moved on. I don't even talk about my husband anymore. I don't mention him. Like, I've moved on. But she clearly hasn't. Like, this, because she's reminded of it every day with the relationship of her son, which is not going that great, by the way. Annoying kid, yelling, has seizures. He's got all these problems, even though I think he only had a seizure because the Babadook was there plaguing him. So, anyway, good stuff. What do you guys have as nitpicks or questions?
No, I want to talk about what you just said. I agree. I think a lot of it had to do with grief. Like the Babadook was like her husband, how she lost him, how he didn't have...
Yeah, the void. Right?
Yeah, and how, like, he was always going to bug her. He was never going to go away, and so she just needed to find a place for him in her life, which was the basement.
And she goes down there every once in a while. She goes alone. She leaves her son up safe, high and dry. She's like, I'm going to go down there. Do not come in. I think it's cool. There's like, you're allowed to grieve, Yeah. And maybe you have to be reminded of it every year. There's an anniversary. You don't have to completely forget,
Yeah, and if you let it get to you, it'll get under your skin and make you start killing everybody, apparently.
What a creepy way to say that. Get under your skin. That's exactly what happens. Or we'll freaking dive at you and dive into your mouth or your eyeball or in your spine. Freaking terrifying, dude. Oh my gosh.
I still don't understand the maggots, though. Like, how the maggots factor in and the worms and stuff. Like, does it just need to feed off some life and... basically?
I think it's a really good one. Visually looking, it's very creepy, but two, maybe it's like I kind of like the idea where it's like there is a physical beast there. But I know a lot of people are like, oh, this is sucked as a creature movie because you didn't see the creature. Take it from Jaws. You don't want to see the creature, okay? You want to keep it as ambiguous as possible. Rosemary's Baby, The Shining. You don't really know what's going on. It's the ambiguity that really helps a movie and lends it to be creepy for years and years to come. All the movies that I mentioned, need I say more? You know, like if you finally show the creature, it doesn't really work. But they show enough of this thing. You actually see its face. I watched it this time. He's on the ceiling. You see a close-up of the face, dude. It's like Rosemary's Baby. You're like, oh, shoot! You see like a glimpse of it like for a second, and you're like, oh, that creepy white pasty face, spiky, stringy hair or whatever, and the long fingernails. The way he's moving is like stop motion almost, and he's all black, creeping along the roof. Oh my gosh, the ceiling, so creepy. Yeah, I don't know what's to be meant by physically feeding it maggots. Like, I'm only thinking like, one, that's a great thing to feed anything that lives in the basement, right? Just some maggoty, gross.
Well, two things come to mind is like, one, the whole idea of like a physical manifestation. It's kind of like the episode of Rick and Morty when their hatred for each other when they go to couples counseling. They take it out of their head and create a physical manifestation of how they picture each other. And I think that's what this is that it's a physical manifestation of the inner grief. And like you said, you've already said it, but
and actually monstrous, right? Because she did have thoughts of killing her kid. Like, I guess that's one way to cope, right? Like, you just can't bear it anymore. It's just ending it all. I mean, that's a horrific
I think
thought.
every parent can admit, like, at some point they want to strangle their child, just like, because they're just like going absolutely bananas, right? Am I
Clinton, I can probably comment. Yeah.
I mean,
but in fear of having CPS come and take my kids from me, I've never had such thoughts. I don't know what you're talking about. I love my children deeply. It just reminds me of Dennis Reynolds in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia when he gets married to the cat lady, and he's just like, oh, if you want to leave, you can, and just don't touch any of my stuff after I'm gone. And then he's like, just strangled.
And then the other thing,
why is that so funny, dude?
The whole idea, as you were talking about feeding into something, I just like the idea if you're feeding it, it's kind of like, I do agree, like you can have somewhat of a balance, like it's okay once in a while perhaps to quote unquote actually feed into your thoughts or feed into like the fact that she has that grief, because acknowledging it is important, but maybe if you let it simply feed on you for too long.
Yeah, it's not a feast, right? She's not taking Thanksgiving dinner down there. It's just whatever's left over. It's trash, right? So it's like, give it its time, give it its due. It doesn't need to be a Thanksgiving meal. You don't need to waste your entire life away and existence away living in the past or grieving, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to
the fact that she's feeding it instead of it feeding on her is just, it's interesting.
That's a good keeping at bay. I like that. Yeah, because it would do something, dude. Freaking sound that it makes when it goes into her spine. So scary, dude.
Hey, Clinton, do you recommend it?
Yeah, I think it's a good horror film that's not overly scary. So it's kind of like if you're looking for something to keep you on edge, kind of thrilling.
No, it is scary. I'm sorry. I just had to interject there. This movie is terrifying. Don't make people think like, oh, it's just like a sad movie. like Hereditary is not as scary as this movie. And I know people are probably going to think that's crazy. The ending of Hereditary is horrific, but most of it is a horror,
a drama.
It's a drama. This movie's drama and eerie and creepy all throughout. Like, it's not like, oh, like it's the last act that's horror and there's like a creepy undertone. The whole movie, like crunchy glass inside your soup bowl. There's cockroaches coming out of the walls. There's freaking stop motion creepy black creepy crawly fingers. There's the face. There's the pop-up book. I'm just saying. It's scarier than you lend it to. I'm just, listeners, beware. This movie scared the out of me, okay? It's still creepy now. I'm going to have to sleep with one eye open tonight.
Well, and you know how, like, with The Ring, people would, like, call their friends up afterwards? Like, this would be a fun movie to, like, show up with a book. Or just ring somebody's doorbell and just leave it on their doorstep after they watch it.
Gosh, yeah. Freak yeah. If one of these show up, Jordan, you're gonna be pay if you sent me one of these.
My favorite is
you're like, know how much it costs. You probably already sent me one.
My favorite is hearing stories from people that had, like, after they're watching The Blair Witch and having like the little wooden figures outside their doors. Or
so funny.
I like stuff like that. It's funny.
Or we would watch The Descent and go into the caves. When we would watch the Descent movie, we'd go out to the ice caves in Idaho.
Yeah.
And be like, Oh my gosh, what was that? It's terrifying the people we were with.
All right, Clinton, what have you seen lately and what are you looking forward to?
I've been very into Ted Lasso. That's my jam.
Oh yeah? Do you have an Apple account, or how are you watching the Apple
Yeah,
Plus?
I just signed up for one. I'm gonna cancel it, and yeah, and I got
Get it for free?
Alex. Alex
Jump out
is
before
watching
you
it
have to
too. She loves it.
I've heard good things about
You know,
it.
it's pretty indicative of a generation when we are so lazy. Well, I'm at least this lazy. I don't know. Maybe you other listeners can verify this. Write in, futromovies@gmail.com. I am so lazy that I will just pay for something rather than start something for 6-7 days or whatever free trial and then switch over or cancel it. I'm just like, I'll let it ride for a year. I'm that lazy. I won't even create a new email for free, a whole week free. It's like a week. I'm like, what? I have to cancel it and do a new email every week?
Well, Apple TV
So I just
gives
moved
you
off of people.
it gives you 3 months, so you'll have lots of time to do it.
Well,
Holy Hannah.
I had a whole
3 months?
Well, I had a whole year free when they first started, but now that they have more shows, it's not.
It was a whole year. Where did the good times go, dude?
Yeah.
It was like when they had Movie Pass, Jordan. Remember that? In Idaho, there was a guy that started a business, and I got to go see free movies, or I got free popcorn with my movies. It was amazing.
No, well, MoviePass
That
stopped
lasted
because
for-
they weren't making money. It's like we kept asking, how are they making money on this? And they weren't.
They weren't. All
got
they
shut
did
down.
was they were like, okay, all that has to happen is everyone only has to see a movie a month. One movie in a month. Oh, I'm sorry. I went and saw as many movies as you can. And then boom, gone. Yeah. I say like 8 movies in a day, theater hopping. Just
Do you recommend? Do you recommend Ted Lasso?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like
Okay.
yeah,
watch the
it's-
first episode.
You did or
I
you?
like-
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did. I liked it.
Yeah, I think it's really like good and uplifting about how to be like a good person and forgive people and just be a good guy.
What are you looking forward to?
I haven't seen Conjuring 3 yet.
Oh,
I want to see that too.
Yeah,
It does
got
look
that on my
good.
bucket list.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Got 59 from critics, which means it'll probably be a pretty fun horror movie.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
actually a pretty solid score.
I'm a little
If it
bummed
really
James
is.
Swan didn't direct it, but
Is it Lee Winnell or not?
no.
Oh, interesting. Still interested though, because I love the whole idea of making waterbeds a scary thing because they should be out of decommission and out of everyone's homes. They don't belong there. I remember our aunt owned one and laying in it. I remember being told that there were fish floating inside it.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And then this one. But just a severed human head. That's terrifying.
Was it Aunt Michelle? That sounds like Aunt Michelle.
It's actually Chris and Gary.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
They
Tyler
had one. I don't think they still do, but yeah, they had a waterbed.
No.
I'm like, that's so funny.
I mean, the teasing you guys telling you there's fish in there. That sounds like Aunt Michelle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's probably something that Corey told us, I think.
Yep.
Corey. Hey, Ty, what's your favorite color? I don't know. I like red. Oh, I don't like red. I think blue is my favorite color. Yeah, you're right. I think I hate red, too. I think blue is my favorite color. Screw you, Corey, if you're listening to this. You're the
He
worst.
did, Ty. He
Torture
did
me.
start listening to us. It's pretty funny.
Did he really? Oh, Corey, if you're listening, I love you, man.
He's
You're
actually
good.
looking forward to being on with us.
Oh my gosh, Corey! I still validate your opinion. I still need you to like me. I'll say whatever color's your favorite is mine too. Just love me.
Thanks, Clinton, for being on. Appreciate it, man.
Clinton, thanks for being on, you crazy kook.
Good
you
night.
Babadook.
Love you, man.
Duke, Duke, Duke.
Adios. Love you guys.
Don't let him in. Don't let him in. Don't let him in. Oh my gosh, dude.
Oh, Ty, I have to tell you, did you know the gay community says that Babadook is like
Yeah.
homo?
They've adopted Babadook because apparently in the algorithm, I read about this. I heard about it when the movie came out. They like took him in their community. I'm like, sure. I mean, this child murderer, nightmare creature. If the LGBTQ community thinks it'll help their cause, go for it. Take it. I don't care. But it was like in an algorithm on like Netflix. It was like queer and lesbian trans movies. It featured there, and I guess
Yeah.
there was probably something in it about the movie that just featured it there. So the
Ty,
movie's there.
I watched an entire documentary about Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and they talked about how it's a queer movie, and I'm like, I don't see it.
I don't know. Or is it the third one? There's a lot of in the third one, right?
No,
Nightmare on
second
Elm
one.
Street.
It's the second
Oh,
one.
the second one. Yeah, the second one. Highly, but
I mean,
so is
I don't
Top Gun.
know.
I don't know. Take your pick. I
Oh,
guess
well-
if you're looking for it and it gets your you're gonna find it. Like if you project and you're like, oh, this movie speaks about my community, speaks about getting. It's like Okay, I guess. Like, you should take that out. So it's like, yeah, if you want to see something projected in your movies, you'll probably find the messaging, right? And that's what I like about these movies that are a little more ambiguous, because you can project onto it and take what you want from the movie. Like, I don't know, someone could come up to me and be like, your reading of the Babadook was wrong. And I'll be like, oh, you can go to and then I can move on with my life and I'll be fine. But what bothers me is like, okay, so they've adopted him into the trans community. So it's like, okay, so now you have this murderous figment of imagination. Like, Babadook is terrifying.
Yeah, you can take him.
You can have him, but I'm not sure you want him associated with your community. Whatever. Who am I to judge? Like, they're like, more representation, the better. It's like, not when they're all serial killers. And I mean, like, there was a time when, like, we talked about this on Identity. People with multiple personalities or split personality disorder. It's like, they're all represented as murderers. If you have split personality in a movie, you've likely killed someone or are trying to actively kill someone. So anyway, I just find that really funny. About time we started talking about mental illness, and we woke up to how offensive we're being to these people, especially with people with depression. This movie was great about depression. It reminded me of Sinister. It reminded me of like Twilight Zone a little bit. Like, I loved, one of the best things of like The Haunting was like when she's watching the TV and she's watching, yeah, like you said, the Babadook was like appearing in all those old timey black and white, so creepy. And then all of a sudden, like, those are the creepiest cartoons, but most cartoons were creepy like that. And there was a great image of like a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing. I thought that was really good. Like, literally the Babadook takes possession of the mother and can kind of get close to Sam. Like, oh, that was creepy. Loved that, like foreshadowing. But also I loved, after she's watching all the TV shows, there's a moment where the insomnia, it was really well portrayed, right? The insomnia in this movie reminded me of the movie Insomnia with Al Pacino wrapped up in garbage bags. Like, Christopher Nolan did a fine job at presenting what insomnia feels like, but this one almost more. Like, it just, every day she was failing to get sleep. It just kept, like, she's like sitting there staring at the TV, and all of a sudden she looks out and it's light outside, and you're like, she didn't sleep a wink. It like hurts you. You, like, your heart breaks. And this movie, like, almost makes you feel exhausted by the end of the time you're watching it. So you're right. The director actually gets you to feel so much empathy for the mother in this movie. Amelia, I think was her name, but I just call her mom the whole time. But it's just great. I mean, just brilliant. Do you have any quotes from this movie you wanted to throw out real quick?
I just liked at the end when the boy was talking to, who was he talking to? Was it the people deciding whether or not she could keep the kid? And he's like, oh, so you're going to go see your cousin? He's like, I can't because I pushed her off and broke her nose or something in two places. And my father died in the car accident.
My father died. My father's at the cemetery. Oh. And that's so sad, too, because I love that moment where so much is said in that look she gives her, because she goes, oh, well, then your mother's very lucky to have you. And it's almost so sad because you're like, yes, but it's like, obviously, your spouse. And again, children, if you're listening to this, this is how it goes. Your relationship to God, number 1. Number 2, self. 3, your spouse. 4 is kids. You're in a distant 4th place. You don't even place a medal, children. I'm sorry. Now CPS is really going to be on my ass. They're going to be like, we're taking your kids from you. I'm just saying your spouse comes first, guys and gals. They do. I know you don't believe this, and you're thinking, my kids are everything. My kid. Have a good relationship to your spouse.
You can always
it's
have
the
more.
Best thing you can do for your kids. And yeah, and you mess them up, you can have a few more with you can try again. So I would just strongly urge that all you men and women out there, hold tight to your spouses. Just
First child's always an experiment.
The first child, let's roll the dice. This might work. This might go terribly. You can always throw it in a dumpster. Okay, so that was dark. No, I do not condone throwing babies in a dumpster. So I love the quotes, like the magic, nothing in my hands, nothing in my hands. That was great. And they performs the magic trick at the end. I thought that was great. I love the parent-teacher meeting where there's the parent talking to the teacher and the principal. I love those in movies. I don't know why. They always stress me out because it either it tells you so much about like parents talking about their kid, and it's a good way to build exposition and characters' relationships to another. And it's like, he brought this crossbow and it could have shot some kid in the eye. And then they're like, it is like a genuine crossbow. I don't know where that kid got that from. Like, it's not a toy dart gun. Like, I don't know why they don't have Nerf bullets somewhere in Australia or in UK. I don't know where this movie takes place. But can highly recommend getting that kid a Nerf gun. Okay, benefit greatly from that. Not kill anyone with it. Maybe that's just how the toys are in Australia. Have you seen the fetching spiders and everything else they have there? Everything there is designed to kill you, even children's toys. I really like that also when they were like, we're trying to help the boy, we're trying to help. And she's like, please stop calling him the boy. His name is Sam. I thought that was great. And the very next scene, Bobby!
You're right. It was made in Australia.
Oh, snap. I know my Australian accents. What can I say? Nails on a chalkboard, that kid's voice is. Can't get rid of the Babadook, man. Can't get rid of the Babadook. Where did you get firecrackers? You got them from me on the internet. Well, that's the end of the internet. That's good parenting right there. And fetching glass in the bowl of soup when she takes a bite and he's like, the Babadook did it? Like, you're like, how would this kid know? Like, that's so creepy. See, again, I was like, oh, the kid's trying to peg the Babadook. The kid's possessed, right? I kept thinking that, like,
Oh,
the
I didn't
Babadook
think
was
he
going to
was
be a best
possessed.
friend.
I thought he was just
like,
a little demon child who was like
Yeah.
doing stuff to his mom, and he's like, oh, I'm blaming it on the Babadook.
Yeah. Well, okay, so not possessed, but like actually evil, you know, like, I mean, like the Omen, right? Damien, the spawn of Satan, is like literally trying to kill his parents. I thought that, and that's why the bait and switch was good, because at the end you're like, the mother was driven to do it. And even in the book, it foreshadowed all of it. The dog getting its head snapped, and even her almost slicing her own throat. Like, literally, she was at the point of, well, she did get stabbed by her
That
son.
totally reminded me of the end of Conjuring when she's kind of like possessed. I was just,
Yes, yeah. See, again, all these really cool movies, and you could call them, you know, I don't even want to call them cliches, because they're really well done.
No, if it's done right, and you can do that again, like I don't see any problem with it.
Exactly, and also like have all of them, and it still makes sense, right?
It's
is
like
it a creature
Quentin
movie?
Tarantino taking all his favorite things and putting it in one movie, and it's like that works if it works.
Right. So I love that. You know, everything from the shows the kids watching, even the creepy. So the book, and then also the creepy, the Great School of Magic thing. He's so creepy. He's just like, and it will be perilous. So like, it's so ominous. Like, everything in this movie is ominous. The scene where the shadow of the Babadook is creeping over the car is so well done, and she's in the car like terrified. Like, they did such a good job at staging that, because like you're in a cramped little car, but they made the car seem like such a big space where like this creature was like looming overhead. So good that they gave me. Oh my gosh, so good. Oh, and then the funniest quote, like you said, not only when that kid's screaming, there's a great moment where the CPS of Australia, I don't know what they call them, they show up there to be like, we're here to check up on Sam. And then the mom is so out of it, you know, she's like, oh, like there was a hole in the wall, and then there's no hole, and they're like, Like, the worst part is like, hey, Sam, how are you feeling? He goes, I'm a bit tired from the drugs Mom gave me. You're like, shut up, kid. Why would you say that? Like, do you want to live here or not? These people are going to take you away from me.
I love that part.
It was so stressful. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And then a great scene, too, is when the mother is getting, like, she's watching TV, and then she's holding the knife, right? That was a great moment where, like, it appeared in her hand. She freaked out, threw it in the drawer. And then later, it's a great scene where her son is driving her so crazy. She goes over to the knife drawer, grabs it out, and she goes, is this what I have to do? Really creepy, right? Like, I thought she was threatening the kid. And then she goes over and cuts the cable or whatever for the TV, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like my heart's pounding as it is. And then like the scene where she finally kills the dog because it won't stop barking. She murders the dog, but it's probably under the possession of the Babadook. I think definitely under the possession of the Babadook. And then like she looks up at the stairs and sees Sam, and then runs up after him. It's so effing scared, like scary. I'm like, I really felt for Sam in that moment where I'm like, I'm no longer rooting for the mother against the demon child. I'm now rooting for the innocent little boy to get away from the Babadook monster. It's so scary. So I love that. Like both halves of the movie, both of the characters suffer, and it is the grief that is tearing this family apart. So I love that. Perfectly said. Any other things or quotes or nitpicks you wanted to throw out about the movie?
No, I think. Do you recommend it? Is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Do you recommend this movie?
Yeah, I think it's a fun one, especially the first time watching it. Like, you need to see this at least once.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's an experience.
I don't know why I was being all weird on a rewatch, but it's just like I said, maybe it's because all that anxiety and stuff about having kids, and I'm like, oh geez, I'm not ready for this.
You liked it last year, like, man, this kid's really annoying. I hope my son doesn't grow up to be like that. I'll freaking put him in my boo heel.
Well, it just reminded me when I was at, I was visiting Alex and Clinton, and all of a sudden we were at Chick-fil-A, and Mason was crying, and I was like, oh, hey, like, let me help you with that. And I opened his little ranch, and then he stood up on the chair tie and started screaming, like, so loud. And
oh my goodness.
Like, I'm like, oh, Jason, there's people looking, and I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, what's happening? And Alex is like, oh, they just ran out of honey. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for kids.
Dude, that is it, man. It is good news or bad news. There's no in the middle of the road. It's you're careening off of a cliff.
I was just thinking, though,
it's rainbows and butterflies.
Like this lady, like, why doesn't she just like let them take her child? Because it's like why would you resort to killing it. And like, if she got rid of it, then she can start dating again and like get back to loving.
I will tell you, I don't think. Okay, so as a parent, your problems wouldn't end just because someone took your kids. Let's put it that way.
Oh,
Yeah, like right off the bat, that's the first thought that comes to my mind, because you're like, okay, now try to hold a relationship with somebody and explain to them that your child was taken from you because you weren't a fit enough parent or person to watch it. I'd love to see someone not run
or
away
at least give
screaming
it
in
up for
terror.
adoption or something. Like, I don't know.
Again, Jordan, if let's say, okay, so let me play this out. You're dating someone and you're like on the fourth date and you're like, hey, I really like you too. I have a kid and I've given it up for adoption. Oh, okay. Why was that?
Yeah, and you just say because my husband died and because I'm.
Every time I saw him and then I thought of my husband, then he'll be like, okay. Again, I mean, like, assuming that she could move on and find someone nice. I'm just
I don't know.
saying.
It seems pretty reasonable, but.
Jordan's like, give up the kid.
Well, it's either that or kill the kid. Like.
Yeah, I guess if your alternative is to murder. Oh, I finally remembered what I was thinking earlier. Everybody listen to the podcast, Time Market. There's a great scene. It reminded me of Sinister and other horror movies when she's watching the TV news and it talks about a mother that ends up stabbing her child.
I love that.
And she was found, and then you see her looking in the window like, "Nyeh," and then this TV flickers out. I thought that was so good, so great, because again, foreshadowing and like ominously showing like this is going to be the new story that's
stuff
going
like
to happen.
That I'm like, is that just stories or is that in her head? Like, I love things like that. It's like, oh, is she just projecting all these, like, suddenly it's like she can hear things that...
Yeah, I think it was meant to be somebody else, because there was like a lady out there with the cops that was walking around that I'm assuming was a victim of this or whatever. Maybe it was the neighbor, right? We don't know, but it's not anyone that we know. But in the window you see herself and she's looking right at her, and there's that moment where she's looking at it and she's like, is that what I think it is? And then the TV goes out. You know, it's great. You know, again,
it's giving me
unreliable
chills thinking
narrative.
about it, yeah.
I know, dude, just staring at yourself like, I could do this. Like that evil ugliness inside of us is something that you physically could do. Like, it would not be hard to overpower that little dog or her kid and actually kill them. And it's terrifying. Like, no parent ever wants to think that they're capable of such things. I think it's really interesting that, you know, there is like a darkness that could exist in anyone, whether or not like in the moment they're faced with it, that they could withstand it, right? Like it's kind of like when someone says, like, think well before you like you're like someone offers you drugs, have an answer already in mind to say no. Like, just say no to drugs. They're like, say it now, because in the moment you'd be like, oh, why not? And then you're tripping for the next 24 hours and your brain is fried because, you know, like the commercial says, this is your brain, cracks an egg in a frying pan, this is your brain on drugs. It does something to you, man. And I've smoked plenty of drugs in my day. Just kidding. No. I'm a good boy. Never smoked. Never had a touch of alcohol. Thank you. Big brag here, everybody. And I'm the most boring person on earth, so that's probably why. Last minute thoughts. Love this movie. Definitely watch it.
Really good.
Seen anything, Jordan? I watched Dumb and Dumber with my brothers-in-law. Very funny.
Very funny. I did rewatch that pretty recently. So good.
So good. Everybody, this has been Futro Hidden Movie Gems. Leave us an email, futuromovies@gmail.com. Check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Google. I don't know. Not Google. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Instagram. Futro Movies. Futro Hidden Movie Gems. Leave us a review. Like us. And you like it, push it on to all your friends. Share the podcast. Follow us and subscribe. It's free. Unless you go to our Patreon, you can give us money. Everybody, this has been Futro Hidden Movie Gems. Signing out. Peace.
Bye.
Babadook. So good.